This island, brimming with natural and cultural treasures, has been formed 20 million years ago, when the Caribbean tectonic plate met the South American plate. We need to wait until about 5,000 years before Christ to see the first people on this island, the Arawaks. After braving the sea, cyclones and tidal waves, these Amerindian people from what is now Venezuela discovered an island that was still wild. They brought with them their culture, farming practices and way of life. They settled on the island and lived in perfect harmony with nature. Around 900 years later, the Kalinagos and other people from the same region landed on the island. Known for their warrior spirit, the Kalinagos soon conquered a large part of Martinique. After violent clashes between the two peoples, they eventually drove out the Arawaks, establishing their own presence on the island. Their arrival introduced one of Martinique's oldest selling traditions, the Gommier. Patrick Petitot is the founder of the association Gommier Tradition. He teaches how to sail, but also the origins of the Gommier. At first, to go out on the water, they used tree trunks, and then they made rafts. And then they moved on to cutting down a tree to carve it. But at that time, the Kalinagos were animists. In other words, it is a form of spirituality in which every living being has a soul. So, before cutting down a tree, there is a whole ritual to go through. In simple terms, they had to ask the forest to harvest one of its children. The largest pirogues come from trees that were between 20 and 30 meters long. In order to cut trees, they make notches at the base and set them on fire. And when it has burned some of the wood that has turned to ash and charcoal, they break it. And they repeat the operation until the tree falls. The first step to carve the boat into the trunk is to make a flat face, choosing the least rounded side. And in order to carve into this flat face, they used the same method, with the fire. Since the tree was cut down in the forest, it had to be transported to the seaside. When they had this allowed trunk that was more than 20 meters long, they had to clear the way, make a path, and drag it to the seaside.
Pour l'emmener au bord de la mer.
The depth of a boat with wood like this is around 60 to 70 centimeters. If you're sailing on flat seas like this, there is no problem, but if you're sailing on rough seas, the waves can wash over the boat. So we have to raise the height. To do so, we add a piece on the boat. This is why the Gommier has a bow in two parts, with a set back end. These large boats were called kanawa or canoa. Canoa is a Kalinagos word that has been translated into French as canot. It was aboard these boats that the first settlements in the West Indies took place. When they arrived, the Europeans brought with them the rudder, sails, and ribs. Kalinagos came to Martinique, get rid of Arawaks, but in 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered the island. Initially, the exchanges were cordial and friendly.
Là où ça commence
But
à se
things began to
poser,
get tough in
c'est
1635.
1635.
Pierre de Desnambuc came from France to take possession of Martinique and turn it into a French colony. The war has been declared until 1639, when a peace treaty was signed. Martinique was split in two parts, one for the Europeans, the other for the Kalinagos. The part reserved for the Kalinagos is the Atlantic part, which runs from Grand-Rivière to Le Robert and Trinité. Later, the Europeans started bringing people from Africa to work as slaves. The first immigrants, slaves who fled the settlements, went over the Amerindian side. And when there were battles, the colonists found that the warriors who came to fight them included slaves. So in 1658 there was a major raid on the Font Saint-Jacques area, and the Kalinagos who managed to escape left for Dominica or Saint-Vincent in Gommier.
Les Noirs ni l'idée nous respecter. Nous les Noirs attendis ça j'ai réglé. Nous les Noirs nous pédons fait nous la peine. Non me prend la parole et qu'a condamné nous. Ini l'histoire d'après les coloniers. Ini l'histoire d'après les résistants. Ini l'histoire d'après les déportés. Non me prend la parole et qu'a condamné nous.
Les Noirs nous respecter. Tous les Noirs attendent ça s'arrêter. Les Noirs qui fait nous la peine. On n'a pas la parole et qu'a condamné
nous. Canoe races began to appear after the Second World War when people went fishing. Fishermen would sometimes race each other to land first in order to sell their fish. And then during the local patronal festivals, they added canoe races to the program. Today these races has become official, taking place all around Martinique, and associations like Patrick's contribute to tell its story and carry on its legacy. The Gommier is a symbol of Martinique, reflecting its cultural mix as well as its dark past, which both need to be known, shared and preserved.
La canne bleue en elle-même, c'est une canne monovariétale qui a été reçue depuis la Barbade.
À la base, on voulait partir 1 heure plus tôt pour avoir le lever du soleil, mais il faisait vraiment pas beau.
Ah, sur une étiquette.